This is Derek Favors, number 15 from the Utah Jazz. You're listening to Drive Time Sports with Jordan Buscarini.
3-point game. Harris, pick and roll it. Favors takes a strong and one. Oh my! Watch Derek Favors take a leap right here.
Time to talk NBA basketball here on Drive Time Sports. Boy, we had a thriller last night here on KOAL. The Utah Jazz falling to the Memphis Grizzlies at a game that came down to the wire. Bojan Bogdanovic was fantastic. Still just not enough for the Utah Jazz. We'll talk about that game. We'll talk about Donovan Mitchell not playing. And the media reports coming out today that there is a little bit of a rift between Donovan and the Jazz organization because they would not let him play in last night's game. We'll also preview Game 2s now that the first game of Round 1 is complete. Do not overreact. That's what I tell people all the time. It's a 7-game set. Don't overreact. Joining us right now to talk about that, we have Tom Perkins. He's the founder of HoopsCityNews.com, also an independent NBA scout. And Tom, as always, it is a pleasure. Thank you.
Yep, glad to be back, Jordan. This is going to be some exciting playoffs. I mean, you know, obviously it's a shortened season, but it's still going to be exciting for the fans.
Yeah, and as far as the playoffs are concerned this year, I believe there's a lot of variables. I don't know that the seeding necessarily matters this year because teams had such different approaches to the 72-game season. Yeah, it was a shortened season, but it was a really shortened off-season. And so I just don't know how the seeding will actually matter going into the postseason. Now, with that being said, we saw a lot of upsets in Game 1. I'm of the mindset, Tom, you cannot overreact. I said that to many Jazz fans today. Calm down. You're all right. Let's start there. Jazz-Grizzlies Game 1 plays out in favor of Memphis. Utah works hard for home court. They give it up in 48 minutes. But let's be real, Tom. No Donovan Mitchell in this game. And Utah put together a tremendous fourth quarter to put themselves in a spot to secure the win without Rudy Gobert, who had fouled out of the game.
Yep. And, with no Donovan Mitchell and no Rudy Gobert, that makes it very difficult for that Utah team. But the thing is, if Donovan Mitchell comes back, if Rudy Gobert gets his head back together, because he did have a relatively good stat game with the exception of his offense, but if he gets his head together and Conley plays like he did last night, I don't see where the Grizzlies can beat this team. Although they do have great confidence now, having beaten in that first round and then having beaten this having won the first game of this series. So it's not going to be easy, but I think that the Jazz are still outclassing the Grizzlies.
Look, I said Utah can win the series now in 5. I mean, I picked it to go 4 or 5 at the beginning, and I still think Utah could win the next 4. Tom, you mentioned confidence, and I think when we're talking college basketball, yeah, there's confidence. When we're talking high school, yeah, confidence plays a factor. In the NBA, 99 out of 100 times, the team with the most talent wins a 7-game set. So I agree with you. This Grizzly team is playing with a lot of confidence. We saw Dylan Brooks play just outstanding basketball in Game 1. Shoots 50% from the field, logs 31 points. Really just a solid compliment to Ja Morant, who continues to wow us in and out. But when you're looking at an NBA series, 99 out of 100 times the team with the most talent will come out on top.
I would agree with that. Yes, they would. And, they've proven that throughout the years that the most talented team will prevail. Now, again, sometimes there are more talented teams than others, but they're just barely more talented. So, it's not a shoo-in if they're just barely talented. But if, in this particular case, I think the Jazz are clearly more talented than the Grizzlies.
Let me throw a statistic out there that maybe is worrisome for Utah fans. They shoot 12 of 47 from the three-point line. Tom, for one, that's entirely way too many three-point shots. Entirely. I mean, Utah was 34 of 81 from the field. 47 of those 81 attempts were from beyond the arc. Now, there's the old saying, you live, you die with a three-point shot, and that was part of the reason I worried about Utah going into the postseason. Again, not worried in this series against Memphis, but when you live and die by the three ball and you're playing more talented teams who can adjust on the perimeter, and the Grizzlies do have some versatility on the wing, perhaps that's part of the problem. And perhaps that's, not perhaps, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, outside of Donovan Mitchell not playing, that was probably the biggest factor in Utah not getting a win last night.
Yeah, well, again, when you see teams shoot that many threes, you're talking about a team that's trying to catch up, and they're trying to get three as opposed to two. And a lot of times when teams are trying to get threes, it actually screws up their entire offense. If the two is there, if there's a mid-range or even a layup, go for that. You don't need to have threes until the last, let's say, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of the game. But you don't need to have threes with 8 minutes left, 10 minutes left, a whole quarter left. So they got to the point of saying, let's catch up quick. That's the misfortune that most teams meet, is when they have the thought in mind, let's catch up quick.
Again, our guest right now, Tom Perkins of HoopCityNews.com, as we talk opening round of the NBA playoffs. Tom, let's move over to the Suns-Lakers series. In fact, this was the only upper seed that recorded a win in Game 1. Still, I don't believe there's anything to worry about. This is a Laker team that lost Game 1 in the first, second, and third rounds last year in the playoffs. They recovered nicely, winning each of those 3 series in 5 games. I do believe this is a different team, and I will tell you the most concerning aspect of that Lakers-Sun games for me yesterday was the fact that LeBron James attempted, I believe, just 4 shots inside 10 feet. Is that because of the flow of the game, or is LeBron James nowhere near 100%, which is hamstringing him a tad bit in his ability to drive to the basket?
Yeah, I think you've got a point there. He's trying to convince somebody that he's a 3-point shooter, which he's not. And now everybody went way overboard on that last-second shot. First of all, that last-second shot in the against the Warriors, it was a free shot. He could miss and they go to overtime at the worst. But that's not his forte, 35-footers. But now everybody thinks he's a big-time 3-point threat. He's not. And as a matter of fact, I think for the season he averaged about 31% from threes. That's not a 3-point threat. 40%, 41% like Clay and Steph, that's a 3-point threat. So, yeah, a lot of times, again, people think they can catch up real quick with that 3. And then sometimes if they make a 3, they think they're 3-point shooters. That was a very lucky shot on LeBron's part. But I think you're right. There's a lot of mind games going on with LeBron and the other team, even LeBron and his own team. So he's just got to go ahead and come down to earth, play his game, and they'll be okay.
Yeah, I have no doubt. In fact, I'm very confident the Lakers would still win this series. Again, I'm not going to overreact to one game. Even if Phoenix comes out and wins Game 2, I wouldn't overreact to it because, as the old saying goes, the series doesn't begin until the road team gets a victory. Now, if we look at any of the other series in the Western Conference, a road team has already won a game. So, Tom, which favored squad is in most danger in their opening round matchup, in your opinion?
Well, I would say that probably... you would think, I don't know, I would think that the Nuggets might be in danger. I would think that maybe the Clippers, but I can't see it. I can't see the Clippers being in trouble. Although that, Luka had a great game, of course. But, yeah, I would say the Nuggets might be the most trouble because there's another confidence team, Portland Trailblazers. When Damian Lillard starts firing from 40 and beyond and starts making them, that's a tough gig to defend. So I don't think there's any first-round favorite team that's really in trouble right now. Not a one.
No, and again, I believe you have to lose. You have to win on the road before a team is in danger. And like I said, the Clippers, yeah, they lost, but I think talent typically wins out. I agree with you with the Nuggets, especially with no Jamal Murray. I think maybe there's some backcourt issues. The problem with the Nuggets, they don't play great defense, right? When you're going up against a team like Portland, that is so efficient in the backcourt. I mean, you have a 1 and 2 guard that are capable of combining for 70 points on any given night. When you don't play defense, that's a problem, Tom.
That's true. You've got to muster some kind of defense. I mean, even the very talented offensive team of the Brooklyn Nets understand that they've got to throw some defense in there. They can't just outscore everybody. I mean, they practically can outscore everybody, but that's not the end-all, be-all. You've got to have some defense. You're right about that.
Well, let's talk about the Eastern Conference, Tom. If we look at games going down tonight, we get Miami and Milwaukee. I thought this was a bad spot for the Bucks to be in. Yeah, they take game one. They had to work for it. It did not come without any sort of massive effort, especially late. This is a series that I don't think Milwaukee wants to be in, and it would not surprise me if the Heat push this 6 or 7 games. I actually think this may be the most entertaining, outside of the Knicks and the Hawks, which they've already proven that's going to be a fun series. This may be one of the most entertaining series of the opening round in general.
Yeah, that is, because when you talk about those 3-point shooters that the Heat have, Duncan Robinson and the other kid, it's a kind of a situation that, wow, what do we do now? So yeah, and then Dragic is playing this year unhurt. He's not hurt. So yeah, that Heat team is dangerous, and they're very well coached. People don't give that guy credit enough. He's a hell of a coach. And, of course, he learned how to coach from Pat Riley.
Yeah, Spoelstra's done a tremendous job in Miami. Last year's proof of that, the way they maneuvered all the way through the Eastern Conference to get to the championship. Spoelstra's done a tremendous job. Not a great matchup for Milwaukee. Outside of that, I thought the Eastern Conference, it was pretty much chalk. Boston, Brooklyn, we know that's going to be a lopsided series. I'm going to go ahead and say the same thing with Philly and Washington. The Wizards may take one here or there, but Philly's going to outclass them. The Knicks and the Hawks, it's such an unlikely first-round matchup, but boy, Tom, game one was something, wasn't it?
Well, something else, yeah. Trae Young, who I've never been a total 1,000,000,000% believer about Trae Young, but he certainly played very well. Probably his best game as a pro is what he played, because he made all important shots. That last floater that he made. So, Trae Young is really starting to play where he doesn't feel like he has to make all his threes. So, yeah, that's an interesting series. I still don't see the the Hawks winning that series, but who knows? It could go in all of those directions.
Right. Well, I mean, Julius Randle was not good last night. He was not efficient from the field. Shoots 6 of 23. Derrick Rose was Derrick Rose. Comes off the bench, delivers a nice little offensive punch. But former Jazz man Alec Burks was tremendous. 9 of 13. Knocked down 3 shots from beyond the arc. He scores 27 points off the bench. I think this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 series to watch here in the opening round, because, again, it's so unlikely that these two teams would have met at any point in time of the playoffs, much less in the opening round. Atlanta steals game 1 on Sunday, 107-105. A lot of basketball still to be played. Tom Perkins joining us over the phone. Tom, I know we'll be catching up again relatively soon, but for those listeners who want to continue to follow your work, and of course with you being an independent scout throughout the league, where can they find you?
Well, obviously, HoopCityNews.com. We're writing a bunch of articles about the different series, the different stars, the different players that have stepped up, and some of the stars that have stepped down. I mean, Denver lost, but Jokic was still Jokic, 34 points. And of course, you've got to give the Suns credit with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. But yeah, I think that it's just a matter of the teams that are, let's say, decidedly better, as we had talked, just finding their legs, finding their rhythm, and calming down, and they'll go ahead and get that series done.
Tom, always a pleasure to get you on the show. Thank you again for the time. Look forward to talking again real soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Let's break again. More Drive Time Sports coming up on the other side right here on 107.3 FM and 750 AM.